In Washington today, President Biden met with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and other congressional leaders as they try to reach an agreement to raise the country's debt level. Without the debt level being raised, the U.S. could run out of money to pay its bills as soon as June 1st. So the big first meeting between the president and the House Speaker has ended, and they agree on one thing: to meet again. Meanwhile, Rome is burning, as they say, and joining us now is Michael Faulkender. He is the former Assistant Secretary for Economic Policy at the Treasury and is now Chief Economist of the America First Policy Institute. Michael, appreciate you joining us.
Great to be with you.
Michael, even before today's meeting, at the end of the day, our debt is $31 trillion and counting. Senator Scott Brown was on Center Point a few weeks ago. He said when he left office, it was $9 trillion. So obviously the debt ceiling is a temporary fix. They're going to try to work on that on Friday's meeting. But what exactly can both sides do to fix the bleeding and the long-term impact that is having on American families?
Yeah, if not when we're negotiating an increase in the debt ceiling, essentially the nation's credit limit, then when are we going to talk about the unsustainable nature of the current budget situation? You know, not only do we have $31 trillion in debt outstanding, but the Congressional Budget Office came out with a report just a couple of days ago that said that the deficit for this fiscal year, and we're only 7 months into it, is already $500 billion higher than it was the same time last year. That spending is up about 10%, revenues are down about 8%. And so we've got this massive fiscal hole in our budget, and yet the president seems unwilling to negotiate. I mean, if I heard Speaker McCarthy correctly when he came out of the meeting with the president, he had asked the president, is there one place in the budget that you think we can find spending reductions? And according to Speaker McCarthy, the president couldn't provide a source. So now is the time for us to get serious. We're looking to the Senate. Now that the House has passed a bill, we're looking to the Senate to see if they likewise can identify spending reductions that will finally put us back on a path towards fiscal balance as part of raising the debt ceiling.
Michael, what are you seeing as far as American families and what they're discussing? We're paying $1 billion per day in interest payments on this debt ceiling. In the meantime, the Biden administration, they're touting the Inflation Reduction Act. I don't know any family that's sitting around their dinner table, talking and acting as if the Inflation Reduction Act is such a big deal. They're talking about gas going down, grocery spending. They're talking about paying for college. They're talking about summer activities, camps, trips. They're not able to do that anymore. So what are you hearing outside of Washington, D.C.?
I'm hearing exactly the same thing that you are, which is that American families are still highly burdened by inflation. I mean, we have to remember that over just the first 2 years and 4 months of this administration, we've already seen prices increase by 15%. Mind you, that's more than twice the price increases that we saw under the entire 4 years of President Trump's administration. And so the president and Democrats in Congress can claim all they want to have passed something called the Inflation Reduction Act, but prices are not coming back down. And so you've already mentioned the amount of interest that the American people are paying. They're also paying a lot more for goods like clothing, like food, like energy, exactly because of all of the spending that Washington has done that's all been put on the nation's credit card. And so if we really, truly want to address the out-of-control inflation in this country, we have got to cut back on the amount of government spending. And right now, as we're negotiating a debt ceiling increase, now's the time for us to take some of the pressure off of the American people and start limiting the amount that price increases are affecting people by removing a lot of the excess government spending.
And Michael, today or earlier this week, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said, let me be very clear. The president has been clear on this. Well, the last couple of months, he came out and was very clear. He said no spending cuts. So what was today's meeting about? Because it seemed like a lot of pomp and circumstance and a major circus.
It seems like the president and the Democrats in the Senate were really surprised that the House was able to pass a debt ceiling increase. They were counting on enough House Republicans to be unwilling to raise the debt ceiling under any condition. And so I think that they are still trying to implement their original playbook, which is to try to get a debt ceiling increase that does nothing about the long-term fiscal situation. And they think that if they can run out the clock, there'll be just enough House Republicans that will vote for a clean debt ceiling. But I think what this meeting today, I think Speaker McCarthy's agenda in the meeting today, along with Senator McConnell, was to make clear that they're more than willing to negotiate. They want to meet the president halfway and come up with a compromise measure, but it's going to have to contain some spending cuts that put us on the beginning of a path back to fiscal balance.
With his approval rating one of the worst ever for any president in the first 2 years, this president, Michael, needs a win, doesn't he? He has the Hunter Biden issues. He has Title 42 looming, inflation, gas prices, the debt ceiling. Superpowers are joining forces. This president needs a win. Wouldn't compromising on the debt ceiling and budget cuts give him that win?
You know, when I was assistant secretary, I followed the words of one of my predecessors, Paul Volcker, who said that good policy is good politics. And right now, what we need is good policy by getting our fiscal situation back in order, and that should solve President Biden's political problems.
Michael Faulkender, we appreciate you joining us. Thank you for your insight.
Thanks for having me with you.